Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the North Shore Unitarian Church, where our mission is to empower people to live with greater depth, meaning, and purpose. My name is Sonia, or Sunny, and I'm serving as the Sunday Service Associate today. What I love about this community is it is a place where I have felt belonging, and that's our theme for the month. Very few churches are welcoming to people with LGBTQ two-spirit backgrounds, and this has been a spiritual home for me and our family for several years. I'd like to take an extra moment to welcome everyone who might be here visiting on this Thanksgiving weekend, any newcomers or visitors who are here with us today. We're glad you're here, and if you'd like to learn more about our community, I'd encourage you to sign in with your contact information on the iPad in the foyer. If you have any questions about our congregation or the Unitarian Universalist tradition, or any of our friendly volunteers wearing greeter buttons, would be happy to chat with you. We are a busy congregation with many things going on. Please note the announcements in your order of service and on the screen. After the service, I'd like to invite everyone from longtime members to first-time visitors to come downstairs for coffee, tea, and conversation. In this community, we celebrate people from all walks of life, no matter how you make your living, how you experience the sacred, no matter who you love or who you vote for. We hope you will feel welcome here. I'd like to share with you this short reading, from the worship for this month, the worship notes from Soul Matters by Mark Morrison Reed. It's called To Unveil the Bonds That Bind Each to All. The central task of the religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. There is a connectedness, a relationship discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice. It is the church that assures us that we are not struggling for justice on our own, but as members of a larger community. The religious community is essential, for alone our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength is too limited to do all that must be done. And so, today, I light this chalice with the hope that together our vision widens and our strength is renewed. May we kindle this flame as a symbol of our gathering. The light of understanding illuminate our darkness. May the warmth of sharing bring us peace. So moving into our time for centering, I invite you, if you choose, to join me in a moment of quiet. And this is from Reverend Gretchen Haley. Know that you're not alone, and discover the way our voices rise. For this one moment, know that you are loved. Know that you are safe and whole and loved. Know that you belong here among us, here upon this earth, in your body, however tired or broken your heart may be, whatever fear, disappointment, or anger you carry. For this hour, know you are not alone. Feel the presence of others surrounding you, breathing inside you, beside you, with you, discovering together the way our voices rise and fall together in harmony, in hope. Claim here a resilient freedom, the choice for love, for light, to live with joy and gratitude and praise as a form of resistance.
Everybody prays. That's the main point I want to make this morning, and I figure there's a good chance it's going to upset some of you, so why put it off? Get it out of the way right off the bat and leave myself more time to win you back. Everybody prays, they just call it things like centering, meditation, being present, or positive affirmations. I don't have any formal meditative or prayer practice, but I definitely pray. When I'm grappling with a particularly difficult computer problem, I've been known to say, "Come on, you expletive, just work." Now, this prayer is obviously less humble than the Lord's Prayer and less universally applicable than the Serenity Prayer, but it's still a form of prayer. After all, what is prayer but an acknowledgement of our own limitations and an earnest request from a power outside our understanding? When there are other people in the office, I try to remember to pray silently. Yoga is a spiritual practice. Even though it's been commodified and stripped of its religious underpinnings, the practice itself is still a form of meditation. Even some so-called self-help systems like The Secret are just prayer repackaged for modern heathens. The law of attraction, the power of positive thinking, and other versions of putting something out into the universe are just prayers without articulating who or what you are praying to. The secret of the secret is that it's a prayer to privilege. The degree to which you can manifest your desires mostly depends on how much society is already set up to cater to them. How you pray will vary from person to person. After all, people are as unique as snowflakes, which is to say that there are 39 basic types, with trivial variations determined by the environment during their formative period. Everybody prays because life requires faith. The universe is too complicated to ever be fully understood, and no matter how much we learn, there will always be things outside our understanding. Whether it's people thousands of years ago cowering in a cave during a lightning storm, or today's generation grappling with a government and economic system which refuses to address climate change, there are forces that are beyond our control and comprehension. That is one of the constants in life, even though the specifics change. Faith is required not because it's a solution in itself, but because it's a ward against nihilism and despair. We cannot wish away the impending climate apocalypse, but we can pray for strength to keep working toward a solution, no matter how unlikely it may seem, for guidance when we don't know what to do, for the courage to remain open-hearted in a world continually trying to divide us. And we can have faith that the majority of people are compassionate and willing to do what's necessary, even if their leaders are not. Even science requires faith, that the instruments are telling you what you think they are, that the results weren't skewed by some factor you didn't account for, that the research you're building off wasn't flawed. There's a famous psychological study from the 60s known as the marshmallow test. They put a marshmallow in front of a child, told them they can have a second one if they don't eat it for the first 15 minutes, and then they left the room. If the child didn't eat the marshmallow, it was taken as an indicator of willpower, and they tracked the kids throughout their lives and reached the conclusion that the willpower to delay gratification paid dividends later in life. It's one of the foundational pieces of social science research and has been scientific gospel for decades. And it is also completely wrong. The original study was performed on just 90 children who all attended the same daycare on the campus where the study was performed. That campus just happened to be Stanford University, an elite and expensive college. A similar study was conducted last year, but with 10 times as many participants and a more representative cross-section of society. The new study found almost no correlation between so-called willpower and success later in life once other factors were controlled for. Instead, they found that both the ability to delay gratification and success later on were related to the parent's socioeconomic background. The new conclusion was that children were more likely to trust that the promised second marshmallow would appear if their home life was economically stable and their parents had been able to follow through on promises in the past. And this stability likewise translates into future success. This study was repeated as part of the reproducibility project, along with 100 other studies, and as of those 100, only a third have been successfully replicated. The majority were not. It's being called the replicability crisis, but it could just as easily be described as a crisis of faith. Nothing tangible has been lost. The labs and universities weren't destroyed. The data still exists and in some cases can be incorporated into further research. What's missing is the trust, the faith that previous findings and conclusions are reliable and can be added onto without reconfirming every assumption. As with any major change, it's causing turmoil in the scientific community. Some scientists would rather discredit the new findings than admit they built their careers and reputations on a mistake. Others are trying to ignore it in a vain hope that it will all blow over, while still others have chosen to retire early. Such upheaval is uncomfortable but necessary to maintain a healthy society. I hope and pray that we're headed for a similar upheaval in society as a whole to finally accept the reality of climate change. It will be uncomfortable, but the stakes are astronomically high, and denial and delay are not a solution. Now, I know that a lot of Unitarians have a problem with the word prayer, even if the practices I've described are acceptable. But as my communication professor always liked to say, the word is not the thing. 60% of verbal communication is not in the words, so it's best not to get bogged down worrying about the denotative meanings of the words. But I also know that I am broadening the definition somewhat. So what do I mean when I say prayer? Simply put, prayer is the act of directing your inner monologue while simultaneously opening yourself up to accept an answer in whatever form it may take. We all talk to ourselves constantly without thinking about it, and you can drive yourself a little mad if you try to think about what you are thinking about. Prayer is a way to tame the stream of your consciousness by intentionally inserting your own directives into the flow. It can be as simple as repeating a mantra or positive affirmation, or as specific as beseeching a specific deity for help with some problem in your life. The trick is to divert the flow in the intended direction without attempting to fully control it, as that will just cause it to eddy and swirl in an even more chaotic fashion. Understand that I am not trying to convince you to accept prayer in some scaled-down version of Pascal's wager. I'm telling you to accept that you already pray and that it's okay. Everybody prays, and if you don't, you should, because it works. Prayer works in two ways. The first and most direct way is if it spurs you into action. Faith without works is dead. James 2:26. You didn't really expect to get through a whole service with prayer in the title without at least one Bible quote. The important part of prayer is the work you do, not the prayer itself. So much of life is struggling to convince yourself to do the things you already know you should be doing. Most problems are difficult but not complicated. The solution to homelessness is to give people homes. The solution to global warming is to stop burning fossil fuels. It is that simple, but it will be incredibly difficult. And if praying helps you do what's necessary, then you absolutely should. The Mormon Church's disaster relief trucks were the first to arrive in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina days before FEMA. Martin Luther King's faith helped him persevere for years, despite the knowledge that the struggle would almost certainly end in his death. That kind of faith and dedication isn't strictly rational, but sometimes that's what's required. The second way prayer works is by improving your luck. And this isn't some superstitious or metaphysical claim, it's a fact. If you do it right, praying will make you luckier because luck is a skill. British psychologist Richard Wiseman conducted a series of studies on people who described themselves as either very lucky or very unlucky to see if there were any commonalities. What he found was 4 traits. Lucky people are more likely to notice and act upon chance opportunities, make lucky decisions by listening to their intuition, create self-fulfilling prophecies by expecting good things to happen, and have a resilient attitude that transforms bad luck into good. In one experiment, he gave his subjects a newspaper and asked them to count the number of pictures in it. Unlucky people tended to take about 2 minutes to finish. Lucky people were done in mere seconds. How? Well, on the second page, there was a message that read, "Stop counting, there are 43 photographs in this newspaper," in 2-inch tall type. The lucky people saw it, while the unlucky people were too focused on their task to notice. In another experiment, he left a 5-pound note on the ground where his subjects were going to walk past. The lucky person found it, the unlucky person stepped right over it without seeing it. One morning last week, I was lucky enough to see a coyote standing near the edge of the forest as I drove by, though not lucky enough to stop in time to get a picture. This isn't merely a matter of measuring awareness and rebranding it as luck, because after he identified the 4 aspects of luck, he was able to teach the unlucky people simple exercises to make themselves luckier. Awareness is negatively impacted by anxiety. The more you focus on one thing, the more worried you are about missing that thing, the less likely you are to notice things you weren't expecting. In extreme cases, you can physically get tunnel vision. So how does this relate to prayer? Well, all 4 aspects of luck can be improved through prayer. By calming your mind and opening yourself up to the unexpected, by listening to your intuition, and by adopting a resilient attitude in the face of adversity. And creating self-fulfilling prophecies by expecting good things to happen just sounds like a long-winded way of saying have faith. Even before I'd heard about Professor Wiseman's luck research, I was already practicing a lot of what he teaches because it turns out comedy writing is very much related to luck. Comedy is all about noticing things that other people don't notice, the commonalities between seemingly disparate things and the myriad parts of life that make no logical sense if you really think about it, but most of the time we don't, because we're too focused on just getting through it, like putting a no stopping sign right next to a stop sign, or the fact that an acquired taste is just Stockholm Syndrome with food. Most of the time, jokes just pop into my head out of nowhere with no real indication of how it got there, like a $5 bill lying on the sidewalk, and all I have to do is grab them and hold on to them. But when I'm working to a deadline, then I have to force it, which is something of a contradiction because you can't go looking for the unexpected. The best you can do is try to maintain a posture of openness. Transitioning from my day job solving computer problems to this state requires a mental shift, and how I go about that should sound familiar by this point. I put on music to drown out external distractions, and then I focus on the problem for a few minutes, and then I try to just let my mind wander. Mostly this means alternately staring at the unfinished sentences on my screen and staring at nothing, but I also go for walks in nature if it's available, and then note down anything that occurs to me if it seems relevant. Sometimes I say to myself, what am I really trying to say? Which is just a way of trying to force myself to listen to my intuition. Most of the time, I already have a sense of what's missing or where I'm trying to go. It's just a matter of filling in the blanks. There are really only 5 ideas in this sermon. The rest is just scaffolding and decoration. But the scaffolding is necessary to support the ideas. I mean, if I just come up here and said, everybody prays, faith is necessary, luck is a skill, and then sat down, nobody would have gone home happy. So I had to fill in the blanks, and it took a lot of mental trickery to entice inspiration to strike often enough to connect it all together in a way that's more or less what I wanted to say. Is this prayer? I think so. I'm asking the universe for something, and usually I get an answer. Whether that answer pops into my head out of the ether or arrives while I'm doing something else hours later is as immaterial as the thoughts themselves. And I suppose what you ascribe as the source of these gifts goes a long way toward defining your personal theology. Humanists and atheists would tend to credit internal inspiration, theists and mystics, something external. I would describe myself as a weak atheist, and I'm not using that as an ontological categorization. I mean it in the slang sense. My atheism is weak. I am bad at being an atheist. Logically, I find it highly unlikely that there is some sentient entity watching us and manipulating our lives in ways we can't detect, and even less likely that people thousands of years ago who hadn't even discovered bacteria or subatomic particles somehow unraveled one of the greatest mysteries of the universe. If I were a purely rational being, that would be the end of it. But more than anything, I am a narcissist. And at my core, I believe that there has to be something greater than myself that loves me so that it can love me more than it loves other people. My faith is an extension of my ego. I live my life expecting that things will work out for me, and generally speaking, they do. Because of privilege, because of luck, or because the universe is sentient and encourages my laissez-faire attitude, who can say? But there are forces beyond my control and problems I cannot overcome. My mother has cancer. It's not curable, so although it's responded well to treatment so far, it's a near certainty that she will die from it, unless she dies of something else first. Which is actually true for all of us. Studies have shown that everyone will get cancer if they live long enough. The only way to avoid it is to die of something else first. That is our destiny. But it's more immediate when it's your own mother and she's been diagnosed and had surgery and radiation and immunotherapy, and her death has been imminent to varying degrees for several years. She's always said that she doesn't want to linger while her mind goes. And as the saying goes, be careful what you wish for, because you may get it. We don't tend to talk about death much in our society, despite it being one of the only certainties. And we seem to be taking a similar approach to the climate apocalypse, despite its increasing inevitability. In the coming years, we will all have to make sacrifices to do what we can to save our fellow beings and the planet itself. It will be a test of our faith, of our dedication to the 7 principles and our personal beliefs, but it is necessary. For as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also. And if we need to pray for the strength and courage to do what is necessary, for the faith that it will be enough, even when it seems that nothing could be, then we must do that as well. Amen. Blessed be, and may it ever be so.